Play clock at 5. Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. To Henry. Quick snap. Breeze. Pass is incomplete. No flag for Tommy Lee Lewis.
Got him at the 40. It's Thomas at the 50. Skipper down 3 to the 30. To the 20. Thomas to the 10. Denver's going on the New England.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just got done with pretty much the most exciting part of the offseason. So all we have left to do is pick and choose some highlights from camp and hope for the best until the season actually starts. So it's an uphill battle from here. But apparently with how the offseason's been going now, the drama hasn't stopped. And even though we're done with the draft, it still has yet to slow down because huge news out of the desert. And I guess we can't be too surprised after that amazing Hail Mary catch. The writing was on the wall, apparently. There goes that Jordan contract. But, Alex, how are we feeling after the 2022 NFL draft?
Man, I feel like this year's draft was kind of everyone's worst nightmare, where all the quarterbacks fell to the third and fifth and sixth round. And, I mean, everyone was making trades in the first round, but it seemed like that, you didn't have the Chiefs get a big receiver. You didn't have the Packers go get their big first round receiver. And you didn't have, big, massive trades besides the A.J. Brown one we had.
Mm-hmm.
So I think overall that this is going to be one of those meat and potatoes drafts where you see a lot of linemen, a lot of D linemen, a lot of corners, a lot of good, safeties come out of it. But this is not going to be the draft where you get the offensive flash like you do with the receiver class that has made a couple of news stories in the last couple of weeks here with the A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel class. I don't think we're going to have a bunch of impact offensive players like we did in that draft, but this is definitely going to be a situation where, teams like the Ravens and the Jets that had a bunch of really good.
Shout out to the Jets.
Just a great first round for them. I mean, There's talk about Jermaine Johnson going number 4 overall to them, and they went and got them in 26. It's pretty great. Good for them. Good for the Jets for once.
Of course, a couple of things we're going to talk about is the Jets, and we're actually going to talk about them in a positive light. So for one thing, I am shocked. So shout out to you guys, JETS, Jets, because there's positivity coming from that franchise. And it feels like we haven't really had that since the Marcus Sanchez days when they were somehow making to the AFC Championship game. Let's not talk about those years because they literally don't make any sense to me.
Rex Ryan, baby. That's all I got to say.
Jeez, freaking Ryan.
Rex Ryan in the Blitz Doctor.
Oh, oh boy, you're bringing up horrible stuff, Alex. Rex Ryan, wasn't his wife the one with like a Joe Flacco jersey tattooed onto her or something? Or no, it's Rex Ryan with his wife tattooed with the Joe Flacco jersey on her. Wasn't that what it was?
Hold on, that is a story that is completely ringing absolutely no bells in my book. Are you serious? Is there some story with Joe Flacco, Rex Ryan's wife, and Rex Ryan?
I could have sworn there was
a tattoo somewhere.
There was something about this. It happened a while ago. Yes, Rex Ryan has a tattoo on his right arm with his wife in just a Mark Sanchez number 6 jersey.
That's incredible. That's dedication to a guy that was probably the highlight of Mark Sanchez's career right there.
And yes, I don't think that tattoo looks like his wife. Oh, that's so trashy.
Yeah, that's tough. You don't have to look back at it, Ross. You could just close out the tab.
I'm doing that right now.
It's a good idea. Really good idea.
So we got that. There also some drama coming out of Arizona and just the NFC West in general because the Niners do not trade Deebo Samuel, and the Cardinals are about to miss a key piece of their team for a third of the season. Ooh. Are they going to trade them? That's the question. That is the question. Ryan Tannehill says some, I guess what people want to try to say controversial statements, but he's 100% right about this thing. But before we get into all that fun stuff, an ad. All right, 3, 2. Now go ahead and make sure to head on over to booksforathletes.com, because honestly, writing a book is not nearly as hard as you think it is. And this guy makes it that much easier to get it published. Also, to get a little bit of money rolling to you. And speaking about money, go check him out so I can get some more for this show. But we're going to get into these. First things first, just general feeling of the draft. Alex, what do you think? Because when I was going through this, I was thinking, not like you were kind of going through, not a lot of like big draft picks, but there's a lot of good stuff. You saw tackles and interior offensive linemen going everywhere in this one. So I honestly, as lineman, I love seeing all those guys go top 10, top 20, and maybe, yeah, good for you guys. There are some reaches in this one, and there are some teams that maybe were a little disappointment when it comes to trades. I think the first round and the second round had like some of the most trades in NFL history when it comes to the draft. Hollywood Brown going to Arizona, I thought that was just another great move by the Ravens. Not so much about the Cardinals. That trade will play into a little bit something we'll talk about later. And obviously the Jets knocked out of the park the Eagles knocked out of the park with that AJ Brown trade. And that pretty much was the draft for the Eagles. So what do you think, especially from day one?
Yeah, I think the story of day one was definitely just, the big offensive linemen and the big edge rushers were the story of the draft going into it. People thought that, quarterbacks were not going to be a big story of this draft, but there was, not that one elite Jadeveon Clowney type edge rusher that was, Myles Garrett type, where it's a number one no-brainer, but you had a lot of very, very solid impact players that you can project as 8 to 10 year starters, and they're going to make an impact day one. Guys like Evan Neal, guys like Ike Ekwonu, Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeau, all these guys that are just you plug them into a system and they're going to produce year one, week one. And there was a ton of those guys in this draft. And then you had the really elite corners, Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley. I think you saw
real quick, are we going to talk about how his chain actually has sauce in it?
Drip on it. It was
okay. Here's my question. If you had a sauce chain, what sauce are you holding with you no matter where you go? One sauce. Rest of your life. What are you holding in that bottle?
I think ranch is the most versatile.
Ranch?
And
you're going with ranch?
But it's gotta be Wingstop ranch. It's gotta be like the specific ranch that you get at restaurants, not
it's
not
like
Valley.
legit pizza restaurant ranch.
Yeah,
I know
just
exactly
like
what
that.
you're talking about. It's Hidden Valley doesn't hold a dime to that. I don't know I can't even name what it is, what's different about it. It's just better.
Just significantly better. Yeah, it's
not
I don't know what
margin.
I think maybe it's the cups they put them into. It's the single serve action, because I have noticed
it's just the environment the ranch is raised in.
The ranch that you put in those little cups, those things go bad quicker than I've ever seen anything else go bad in a fridge. So maybe that's what it is. It's just, you have a 24-hour, 48-hour window of this really, really incredible ranch, and then it's just too good to be true after that.
Let's see, we got this store ranch that's bottled up. It's kept in these tiny compact cages and it can't breathe, it can't live. But we got this free range restaurant ranch that's just significantly better, I think.
Yeah, it's got a short shelf life though. I'll tell you that much.
It's worth it. For my choice, I think it's definitely the Idahoan in me, but fry sauce everywhere.
Wow.
Dude, have you had a good fry sauce?
Is that like a Chick-fil-A sauce kind of thing?
It's kind of like Thousand Island with a little bit extra.
Yeah, I feel like that's like In-N-Out special sauce. Is that what you're talking about?
It's very similar to that. But for me, at least I like homemade fry sauce because I'm fancy like that. So I have a little bit more kick in my fry sauce.
Yeah, you put hot sauce in there.
Actually it comes with I like doing with chili powder. That's where some of my spice comes from, and a little bit of jalapeno in there as well. You know what I mean?
I'm not all the way there with you on the fry seasoning or on the fry sauce.
You know, Alex, I will change your mind. You come up to Idaho, I will make you some bitchin' French fries, and I'll make you some fry sauce, and we're gonna have a grand old time. How about that?
I like this. I like this a lot.
Yes, and before we get too much more off topic, let me know what you guys think. If you had that sauce chain, drop in the comments or hit us up on socials. What sauce are you carrying with you 24/7? Sure, there's a lot of opinions out there, but if you say something like relish, if that even counts as a sauce,
No,
uh,
that's like a dress. That's like it's like something you don't call it a dressing as in like it's dressing. It's a dressing as in that's what you dress up like a shitty hot dog with, you know.
that's how you make a hot dog worse. I am not playing around. I'm sure those pickle fans out there will not be happy with that take, but so be it. That's probably not going to be my worst one. But when we get into the draft itself, what team stand out to you the most that just absolutely knocked it out of the park?
There's one team that stands out, and it's not for the traditional reason. I think that a lot of people are looking at it. The Lions had an incredible draft.
Yes.
The Lions did really, really well. And it's not who they drafted, it's also who they didn't draft. And I think the biggest component of what went into their draft decision this year is Jared Goff the answer? Obviously not. He's not a good quarterback. He is
Jared Goff the future? Hell no.
He's average to below average as far as the starters go right now. And so I think what they did was they looked at their team and they said, okay, we have been this middling team for so freaking long. We haven't been relevant since we went 0-16, and that was the biggest storyline.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the quarterback. We know every single successful franchise has that quarterback that they can pin their hat on. We tried to do that with Matt Stafford. It got us to the playoffs a couple of times, but obviously that's, that ship has sailed. And so I think they looked at this year's draft crop of quarterbacks and thought to themselves, we could come back and we could try to invest the 32nd round pick or something like that into Matt Corral, or to, you saw people mocking Desmond Ridder to them at the end of the first, early second round. But I think they just did an incredible job of setting up their team for long-term success with adding an impact player in Aiden Hutchinson, who you can obviously put on all the billboards now. You can put him on all of the season ticket flyers that come out. He is the Detroit boy, the homegrown Ann Arbor kid that is going to stay.
That's going to sell tickets. That's selling tickets.
A lot of tickets. And what else they did is obviously they didn't draft that quarterback, but they drafted a guy, Jamison Williams, that the next quarterback that comes in, potentially the first or second pick next year, CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, those two guys are franchise changing quarterbacks. And Jamison Williams is a franchise-changing wide receiver. When you can pair those two together, as their team stands right now, they're not going to be good next year. They're going to be in the bottom 5 again next year. I think they'll be competing with I think they're going to be competing with the Chicago Bears in their own division for one of the worst teams in the league. But
Chicago, we'll get Chicago in a freaking second.
Yeah, but that's just, they set themselves up to put the next quarterback of the future in a successful position from day one. And I think if they drafted a quarterback this year, that quarterback would have come into a position where they are not ready to succeed. They are not ready to make an impact and make a winning impact. And so I think by not drafting a quarterback this year and setting themselves up for, a bad 2022 and get yourself in that position to get a franchise changing quarterback next year is a really big win for them.
I think I was, when I was watching the draft, it got to the point, it's like that end of third, start of fourth, where it looked like they might actually be going for Malik Willis. I kind of had a feeling there, but then the Titans, I think, is about 5 picks ahead of the Lions, take Malik Willis instead. So obviously that's going to take me out of the picture. And I think as soon as Malik Willis went off the board, that was kind of solidifying that the Lions are not going to be taking a quarterback. But say that the Titans pass on them, there wasn't really another team that would be taking a quarterback. Would the Lions have taken Malik Willis at that end of third, start of fourth, if he was still on the board?
I think at multiple positions, the Lions proved themselves to have an opportunity to draft Malik Willis and not do it. And so I think if it got to that third, fourth round.
But if he gets to the fourth round, if Malik Willis is on the board at fourth, the Lions need a quarterback.
I don't think it's
a bad pick.
I don't think it's a bad pick, but I think it's a pick where you now have to invest time and you just take yourself away from if you don't think Malik Willis is the guy going into it, taking him in the 4th round and just kind of throwing him in the mix and seeing what happens, I don't think is the best avenue for Malik Willis. I don't think Malik Willis is going to be in a successful situation if he's just in that third, fourth round and going to compete for the starting job. I think, we'll bring this up later, but Malik Willis would have benefited the most from going to a position, where they had an established quarterback where he could learn for a year, and maybe that quarterback is in a transition period and then he can step in the role the next year. I know people are saying Jared Goff, that's the situation, but no, Malik Willis is clearly not the franchise changing quarterback. So going to a team like the Titans where they have infrastructure around him, I think it's that's the only spot that makes success, or that made sense for Malik Willis's success, and putting him in Detroit just doesn't do that.
And one thing I will tell you is that I said, while I was actually live, shout out to the boys over at Review and Preview. They run a great show there. I was honored to be brought on for the live stream for a little bit of time, about a half hour, their draft there. So that was a blast. But what I said there is something I'll get into a little bit later when we talk about Ryan Tannehill, and that is Malik Willis ended up in just about the best position possible from him through this draft that kind of was out there. So I'll give you guys a little bit more into that when we get there. But I just want to say, the 3 teams, I would say that if you knocked out of the park, it's the Lions, it's the Jets, it's the Ravens. The Ravens had another great draft. They had talk about the Ravens in the 1st round, Alex. Is last year they get Patrick Queen in the 26th overall. Now this year they're doing some more crazy stuff with their drafting, and they just come out this looking like geniuses again. And it's almost like John Harbaugh, who plays a big role in what they do in the front office. He might not get enough credit. Well, I don't think he gets enough credit as a coach or even just a front office guy in general. This guy consistently is great. Not only getting Kyle Hamilton, who is a great pick, they get to fall out of the top 10. They're able to stank him up, but also in that same round, be able to pick up Tyler Linderbaum from Iowa, who's a big nasty up front. I think that's a tremendous help, especially after seeing the injury troubles that we're worrying about with Lamar Jackson late last season. You want to do something better, you get a big, strong, athletic center to shore up the inside of that pocket where he doesn't always stay, but it definitely is a big help. That was a bang out 1st round.
Yeah, and I think I'm been trying to figure out, is it a chicken or the egg kind of thing when you have these teams like the Patriots and like the Ravens that just seem every single year to do smart football things and find people in the draft where there's a lot of value. And so is it one of those situations where we see the Ravens draft Kyle Hamilton and draft Tyler Linderbaum in the 1st round, and we're like, oh my gosh, how did the Ravens get these players? Or is it the Ravens drafted these players? Oh my gosh, what a value, what a steal, because it's the Ravens drafting these players. And so I think, for this specific situations, it's more, I don't know how the Ravens came away with the best safety on the board and the best interior offensive lineman on the board in the 1st round, and we're still managing to trade back and get more value in this situation. It was very impressive how they came out of that 1st round. I know Lamar Jackson came out with those tweets, upset about Hollywood Brown, but I think once he realizes that Tyler Linderbaum is going to be a center for the next 10 years, he's going to be okay with losing a speedster who can't catch the ball.
You know what, that was way too accurate. I mean, there's some reports that broke out after this trade that they were already talking about, Hollywood Brown was almost wanting to be traded anyway. So that was just kind of unnecessary, I guess, anger. Yeah. It's not really going to solve a whole lot there. But you bring up the Patriots. Let's talk about the opposite end of the spectrum, because I believe the Patriots not only had one of the most confusing drafts of this year, but also one of the most confusing Patriots draft for like the last decade, because typically, like you're alluding to, Bill Belichick is great in the draft. I guess they're probably going to work out because that's what happens with New England, but at least on paper, you're taking Cole Strange, a hard reach in the 1st round. Then you take Taekwon Thornton, hard reach in the 2nd round at 50th overall. Like, they got good players, but also they were reaching all night. And so I don't know. Are you kind of in the same boat?
It's trying to understand what the Patriots are doing in the draft. Just on the front end is never a situation where you're probably going to come out with an answer. It doesn't make any
our
sense.
understanding.
It really is. And it's, you look back, and when the Patriots drafted Logan Mankins, where they did, everyone was looking at him, like exactly how they're looking at Cole Strange, and everyone, looking back on it would have done the exact same thing. So we'll never know with these guys, but I think just from a pure value standpoint, I don't understand how some of these teams can realistically take a guy with a third, fourth round draft grade in most front offices and reach for him in the first round. If it's a quarterback or a situation where you or a left tackle or something like that, where you really benefit from that.
I don't even think he was the best player in his position left at that point either necessarily as well.
I mean, it was like Tyler Linderbaum got drafted right before him, so he wasn't the best center on the board. But I mean, yeah, he was in a group of guys that could have been drafted in the next 3 rounds and all could have been interchangeable. There wasn't that next big interior guard or interior center that blew everyone up in the combine or did all this stuff. It was he may very well end up being a great player for the New England Patriots for a long, long time. But from a pure value standpoint, I don't understand how you can realistically not think you can trade back down to a team that's trying to get back into the first and pick him at the, early second, mid second, if you were really, really set on taking Cole Strange. I just don't understand the value point of 29. But, one thing that I think that the Patriots realized they needed is they were getting beat so much last year with speed. Nowhere on the offense had an explosive. They did not have an explosive player on offense last year. I mean, you look at guys like N'Keal
Mac
Harry
Jones
and guys like Jacoby
when he started running.
No, exactly. And so, and even guys like James White is on the outs, and Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson are those big, bulky, running, just big pounding backs. And so that's why you saw them have a lot of success in the big win games and in the defensive battles and those cold games in December and January. But, they just did not have the team speed to be able to keep up with the Cowboys of the world. In the Bills in the world when they were actually playing in conditions where they could throw the ball. So I think adding those 2 extremely athletic corners in the second and third round, and they took the fastest player at the combine, Taekwon Thornton, who admittedly shot off draft boards right after the combine after running that a sub, I don't know what it was.
I mean, you gotta think, is the 40-yard dash I guess the most pivotal combine drill when it comes to increasing or decreasing draft stock?
I honestly think it's got to be like the biggest driver or quarterback hand size. I mean, if a quarterback hands comes in under 9 or a receiver runs under a 4.34, those are 2 massive drivers.
They could have been the best player in college, but if you don't have the I talked about this when the combine was going on. I hate the combine, dude. I freaking hate it. It's so stupid.
But the thing is, though, is that's where you have, people get these massive jumps and people get these massive stretches. And where, I mean, you remember Dontari Poe from a couple years ago where he went to he was a 4th, 5th round draft grade guy, and he went to the combine and ran a 4.7 or a 4.8 or I don't know what it was, some crazy number as a 380-pound lineman, and he shot up in the first round.
Take a look at him now.
It's crazy.
What's he done?
Oh, you can have such an impact where you have 4 years of data on this guy, and then he goes to the combine and runs in shorts for 45 minutes, and all of a sudden he's a 1st-round draft pick. That's crazy to me, but that's where you get these massive draft reaches, and hopefully they end up being more on the Logan Mankins side, but
I'm not hating on the players who draft stock, goes up on this, because I mean, good for you guys. You're playing the system the way you should be. It's on the teams. Look at the film.
They're doing it to themselves, though.
Look at the film, Alex.
Yeah, the film is there for a reason. And I think that's the problem with the 1st overall draft pick too, is you look at the film and you see a guy that, you can argue is maybe playing out of position in Travon Walker, but I don't know. You see a guy that does not have the impact that a number 1 overall pick made. And
that's why I thought Hutchinson should have been a lock. We were talking about this pre-draft. It's not like the Jags got a bad player, but also the Jags did not have a great draft. For the second year in a row, and they drafted. I wholeheartedly believe they drafted the wrong guy first overall.
100%.
I wasn't shocked by the pick. I absolutely wasn't surprised when they announced Trayvon Walker, but it should have been Aiden Hutchinson. But good for him because he gets to go to a franchise with more hope.
I actually hot take think that Kayvon Thibodeau is going to be the best player out of this draft, and I think he was the most talented.
Dude,
and
the Giants getting him and Evan Neal, that
was a crazy draft, and that's one of those drafts. If you're a New York Giants fan, where you come out of you come out on Monday and Tuesday, and you're talking to your guys at the water cooler, and you just talk about man. It's the trenches is where we're gonna win. We just got to build up the offensive defensive line. That's how we won all of our championships. But it's true. That's how you did win all your championships when you were beating the Patriots as a 6 seed. Is you had a crazy 4-down pass rush and you had a great offensive line.
The Giants aired out the ball and extended the field against the Patriots when they beat them in the Super Bowl twice.
No.
Besides one play that was a miraculous helmet catch. No.
And you even saw that on that play. David Tyree was blanket covered.
Yeah, exactly.
We were not getting any separation.
The Giants were good at smash mouth football, and I hope that's the way they're going, because if they beef up this offensive line, who even cares who your quarterback is when you got beefy old line in front of you and you got Saquon Barkley running the football?
Yeah, I mean it's set up to a point where you come out of the draft and you don't have Daniel Jones at number 6. You have a guy that's actually good at left tackle and defensive end. This would have been
shout out to the New York fans. They actually had a good time on draft night.
This would have been the draft, and the Giants would have been the team to come out and draft Malik Willis at number 5 overall, and everyone would have just absolutely loved it.
I hate that it's true.
I'm surprised it didn't happen. It's the new ownership. If Dave Gettleman was there, of course that's what they're doing.
Oh, freaking Dave Gettleman, dude! That it's a new era for them, and I kind of hope so because they've gone through enough suffering. And I will never hate on the Giants because they're the ones that prevented Tom Brady from winning 2 more Super Bowls. So hey, you guys are great. You're a hero to the league. Eli Manning,
Giants
Hall of Famer just because of that.
And it turns out that the Giants only slowed him down a little bit. Didn't actually put up a fence and stop him.
You know what? At least it's 2 less.
It's 2 less.
It's 2 less.
It's 2 less than his end result because he's still counting.
No, he's apparently if that quote's true of what he told his wife, he's going for another one and then he'll retire.
No, that's what he'll keep telling her. Hey, just one more. Just one more.
I swear I'm not addicted.
No, of course.
Oh man, speaking about being addicted, let's talk about a team that's addicted to failure, because you got a team with a young quarterback who you drafted last year that you totally screwed over, not just from a personnel standpoint, but also from a horrible head coach standpoint. You move on from him, but it still feels like the same team, because I don't necessarily think the Bears did anything drastic to build around Justin Fields, a quarterback who desperately needs to be built around. Otherwise, I am worried already. And to none of Justin Fields, well, mostly none of Justin Fields' own fault. It feels like he's going to end up as a bust, and that's just the team's fault.
Yeah, that's a place where I'm worried about Justin Fields, not the player. I'm worried about Justin Fields, the situation, and it's not looking good for him still. You didn't really help him at all.
You got a couple of linemen, you got a wide receiver, but there wasn't really your first 2 picks in so they don't even get first round picks, but you have 2 picks in the second round, both to the defense. Which is a bad spot, but your whole team's a bad spot.
And this is a team that traded Khalil Mack in the offseason, and Allen Robinson is nowhere to be found. And it's a team that doesn't have an identity, A, and B is you have a young quarterback, and the time is ticking on young quarterback on rookie contract. And I think they severely missed. And getting him, he needs a weapon. He needs weapons on the outside. I think that was a perfect team.
He needs offensive line and weapons.
Needs offensive line and weapons. And
he needs a new offense. He needs 10 other people.
He needs a lot, man. He needs a lot. And I'm honest, I'm worried about Justin Fields. I cannot see them being good next year.
No.
And he just doesn't seem like the kind of guy like the Justin Herberts and the Joe Burrows. And I really think that we got spoiled in that draft class where, those guys came in and Lamar Jacksons of the world, they came in and made instant impacts and were very, very good year one, regardless of the team around them. And, you look at the situations that Joe Burrow went into. The Bengals were horrible. And just 2 years after, he took them to the Super Bowl. And I just don't see that kind of impact Justin Fields can make. But if he shows us that, he can take this team, it doesn't need to be impressive. He can go 5-12 and 6-11 this year and still be everything that a franchise quarterback needs to be. If they're losing close games, if they're putting up points, if he's showing leadership qualities, if they're in a lot of games, but just can't close the door because that defense is so bad. I think there's room to be optimistic about Justin Fields and about this team moving forward. But there's just a lot of holes they need to fill on that whole team. And I don't think that they addressed what they should have addressed this draft. I think they should have been just accumulating picks, accumulating players, and accumulating talent around Justin Fields that you are just desperately lacking right now.
Yeah, poor Justin. He doesn't deserve this. And what I'm worried about, he's going to end up the thing that's happened time and time again is there's a bad team that drafts a good, talented young quarterback, and then they do nothing to build around him. Nothing comes from the career, and then they're replaced after 3 years.
Yeah, I mean that's the issue right now is he needs to actively get himself out of this position of middling quarterback on a middling team.
Needs to get him traded is what needs to happen.
He needs to get him traded, but how do you explain Joe Burrow's rise? And how do you explain Justin Fields taking a bad Chargers team to relevancy? It's these guys, these quarterbacks where you draft them in the top 10, 15 picks where look
at those two quarterbacks. Look at the team around them.
But look at the team around them when they came in there. The Bengals were horrible when
exactly. But look, they actually built around their quarterback. Big surprise, Alex. Wow, it's almost like that's what you're supposed to do.
I hear you. I understand what you're trying to say, but I really think the issue is Justin Fields didn't show any flashes last year to warrant them going all in and making a winning move this year. I think their move is to be bad again this year. You don't see tanking a ton in the NFL. The Bears are not good. They are horrible. There's no avenue for them to.
I don't think there's a redeeming quality about the Bears.
Besides potentially Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields is a good young quarterback, but what you need to do is you need to I don't know what they do. They are honestly, they're screwed. I think that the only thing they could have done,
sell the team, move to a new stadium.
I mean, the problem is the Bears are such a storied franchise, and they seem like they have a quarterback that they want to hang their hat on, but their team is so bad around him. I think this quarterback's just going to end up falling flat in his face because that's just the surroundings around him are just so bad, not supportive at all.
Poor Justin Fields. But before I hop to the next thing, just let us know your thoughts. Who do you think, which team won the draft or is a fan of your whatever team you are? Are you happy with them? What could have been done better? And then who just absolutely crapped the bed and did nothing good? And also, how bad do you feel for Justin Fields?
Tough day, Justin Fields. Not good.
Now we're going to finish things off with a little bit of drama, and not just a little bit. We got a lot of it because not only do we have the draft, you got to take a look what happens because of the draft. This is the draft fallout. And I think one of the biggest talking points over the last few weeks, and it's definitely not going away, especially because we didn't get any sort of resolution from the draft like a lot of people thought we would. Deebo Samuel is still on the San Francisco 49ers. And Alex, I got to hear your thoughts on this one because we kind of talked it through where obviously there's pros and cons to either move of trading him away or keeping him. And it's for the right price. The Niners got some good offers from the Jets, I think from a couple other teams as well, like a first and third. They didn't budge. So and it almost sounded like I got to the point, at least myself, where I was like, cool, if they trade him, that's good. If they hold on to him, that's also good. How are you feeling? How are you feeling with their decision? Are you comfortable with it?
I think I was in the same mindset. And, I think if you go back and you listen to us before the draft and talking about where Debo's landing spot was, it was a situation where we would love to keep Debo. I think our team is obviously best next year with Debo on it. Trey Lance has the best opportunity to succeed. It makes our offense make sense. Puts Brandon Ayuk out in his X position. George Kittle can be used as a blocker, as a receiver. And it just, you talked about, I was listening to a Niners podcast, and they talked about when you break a formation with Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Eli Mitchell, Debo Samuel, and Kyle Juszczyk, there are so many different formations and different personnel types that you can throw out there on any given basis with those 5 guys in the huddle. So just the amount of game planning and the amount of time you have to spend on defending every single wrinkle that the Niners offense can throw at you when they have all their guys in there. I love Debo. Debo is so good for this team, and we use him incredibly well. And I was hoping it would be a situation where, they could smooth things over with the contract. I don't think he's worth $25 million, but is he worth 21, 22? Yeah, 100%. I think if we could shave off a couple of those dollars on the back end, but I also would have been really okay if the Jets would have came and sent a package of something around the 10th pick, one of their early seconds, and then future draft.
I think that's what it was. I think it was 10th. I think it was a first and second from this year. I think another first as well.
It wasn't another report that you're talking about, and so wasn't. It was going to be a first this year, a second next year, and then like a 4th or 5th or something.
There's also a player, right?
There was a bunch of names thrown around. There was.
Let's be fair. There's like 1,000 different reports on draft day alone with 1,000 different packages. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is though, is there's noise around that where the Jets and the Niners 1,000,000% had talks about Debo Samuel, and the fact that the Niners didn't budge off their asking prices points to me that I don't think it's an untenable situation with Debo Samuel. I think you can,
Apparently Odell Beckham Jr. knows something that we don't.
I know that was
won't say anything.
That was incredible. And there was also a story about how someone spotted Debo in Vegas for the draft, and he was in a club, and there was a sign that was this 49er sign.
Oh, I saw.
Yep. And Giga next to it. So I mean, I don't know. There's a couple conflicting reports here where I don't know if Debo is just trying.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know if he's
just trying to be a really good agent and build a value for himself and say like, oh, I don't want to be here, but Odell really is. He's telling all his boys in the back end like, dude, I just want to go back to the Niners. It was so fun to be there. I just got to get my money, things like that. But I don't know. It's gonna be. And the other wrinkle, the other wrinkle is that AJ Brown and Debo Samuel have the same agent. So everything that AJ Brown and who else has the same agent is DK Metcalf. So they all have the same agent. So you have an issue of you have competitors within their own. You obviously have Debo's competing with AJ, competing with DK to get the highest paid salary for that draft class. They're all very, very similar players, or not very similar players, but they're very similar situations within their teams, and I think they all feel the right and they feel like they deserve that $25 million price tag.
No matter what, the agent's making some money.
That agent is reeling it in. I will tell you that much.
Right.
But that's good stuff. I'm okay with where it ended up.
I think I was surprised though. I think I bought into the hype that Debo Samuel was going to be traded.
I did too, 100%. I really thought that it was, for Debo to come out and specifically request a trade, it seemed to me like it wasn't just, hey, contract dispute. It seemed like there was some actual issues going on there, but maybe I'm just wishful thinking, but
hey, Trey Lance has a weapon now.
Trey Lance has, that offense is so freaking
I guess there's
fun.
still potential that Debo gets traded by the time the season starts, but I think if he was gonna, it was going to be the draft.
I really cannot see it unless, because the thing is though, is if you're the Niners, you are not trading him for 23 future picks. You're not trading him for 23 and 24 picks. You have the rookie quarterback on a rookie contract, and you have an incredible team around him. You need to capitalize in the next 2 to 3 years. And Deebo Samuel helps you do exactly that.
Yeah, so first off, I think that was one of the bigger surprises of the night. Another thing was, I guess, not necessarily a surprise that happened on the night. I want to talk about this because a lot of people are, Ryan Tannehill comes out on Tuesday and says in press conference saying along the lines of, I will not be a mentor to Malik Willis. He said specifically, that is my job is not to mentor Malik Willis. And Alex, he's 100% right. There is nothing wrong with this statement. He is a starting quarterback, and he put exactly there. He's Malik Willis' competition, and especially when you're a starting quarterback that is proven that can win you playoff games, has the potential. I don't think he's the one that wins you a Super Bowl, but you can win the Super Bowl with Ryan Tannehill. He's a starting quarterback on at least 17 teams in the NFL. Training Malik Willis isn't your responsibility. If Malik Willis is able to learn some things from you, then great, that's awesome. But he should not have to go out of his way to teach Malik Willis how to be a quarterback. That's not his job. His job is to win football games. And
that's the key, is you said it right there. It's, Ryan Tannehill doesn't have to be a dick. He doesn't have to go out and actively try to misinform him or give him the wrong direction.
Exactly.
But he also doesn't have to go out of his way to make sure that Malik Willis is set up for success for his future.
No, I don't think Ryan Tannehill is going to sabotage him by any means.
No, and that's not what he's saying. And so I think this is, it was important for Ryan Tannehill to come out and say this, because you have a lot of people coming out and, people that are plugged into the NFL supporting him and saying he's right. This is not his job to go out there and mentor Malik Willis. Think about the Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre relationship. Think about the Jimmy G, Tom Brady relationship. There's a lot of situations where, the young quarterback comes into the successful quarterback. And obviously we're not putting Ryan Tannehill on those other guys' pedestal, but Ryan Tannehill, he's a playoff quarterback. The Titans were the number 1 seed in the AFC last year. He's got some success there. He's on a big contract. He's in the middle of his contract. He's not one of the quartarbacks that's, I think if this was a Matt Ryan situation, it'd be a little different. You got a guy.
There is a situation with this with like you said, Matt Ryan's. I would probably put, Ryan Fitzpatrick in that situation. Yep. Nick 100%. Foles for whatever he's worth. There are quarterbacks around the league that could and should be mentors, but one pattern around those guys that you might name is they're on the downhill of their career. They're not competing to be a legitimate B tier at worst starter in the NFL. Ryan Tannehill is right there.
100%.
He's in the prime of his career. Prime guys don't mentor guys. Guys that are on their way out mentor guys. They serve a great role. Ryan Tannehill is not serving that role.
And I honestly think if we didn't have this preconceived notion that Malik Willis was a first-round talent or had this crazy upside, if this was someone like I don't know, throw out any like backup quarterback, like if this were a Bailey Zappi or a Carson Strong, I know he went undrafted, but a guy like that where you get him in the 3rd round because of because it's going to be a good backup quarterback for the future. If this wasn't Malik Willis and a guy that had this hype built around him, you wouldn't have a story come out and say, you wouldn't have reporters going and ask Ryan Tannehill, do you think you're going to go mentor Malik Willis? No, he's a 3rd round quarterback. Why would I ever do that? It's not on Ryan Tannehill to go out of his way to go make sure Malik Willis is in a situation where he feels comfortable and feels successful. It is, however, his responsibility to be a great teammate, to, answer questions when they're in the QB room. That's a very,
he's a team captain. Room. He's a starting quarterback. You bring up the guys around you, but if he helps Malik Willis, it's not because he's there to mentor him. It's because, like you said, Alex, he's just being what a team captain and a starting quarterback does. Yes. That's what they do. They make the guys around them better, not necessarily because he's doing for Malik Willis, but he's doing for everyone around him. That's how it should be.
100%. And it's also, Ryan Tannehill is probably looking back like, why am I getting asked these questions? How, I was the number 1 seed in the AFC last year. I went to the playoff. I went to the
without Derrick Henry.
I went to the AFC championship game against the Chiefs the year before. Why am I in this position where I am getting questioned about having to mentor this new quarterback that just got drafted in the 3rd round? It's
a dumb question.
And especially after Ryan Tannehill, I don't know the exact timeline of this, but he just recently came out and talked about his mental health struggles after that Bengals loss.
I think the same press conference too.
Yeah. And so he wore it on his shoulder. And so, I don't know. That's just a tough afternoon to start peppering him with questions like that. And
sports media is stupid, but we've been knowing that for a little bit.
He's just not that guy. He's not the guy that you need to be asking these questions about. If this were Ben Roethlisberger last year and Malik Willis gets drafted to the Steelers, 100% different question. But
he's on his way out. There's a theme. Ryan Tannehill is not part of that mold. And then one of the last things we're going to talk about here is we're coming back to it. It's time to talk about the drama in the desert because DeAndre Hopkins is suspended for 6 games for popping positive for PEDs. And he put on a post on social media is that he is going to get to the bottom of this, of whatever went wrong here. You might have to do, you take the finger and you point it at yourself here. But I guess this one thing I will preface is saying that a majority of the players in the NFL cheat. They're doing something, and one necessarily they're cheating, but they're taking some sort of supplement that maybe it's not banned, but there's people always trying to get a leg up on their competition with some sort of drug, some sort of process, and so like none of this is new. But DeAndre Hopkins did pop for something that was outside of the allowable stuff that the NFL gives you, where there's probably a lot of that. So that's one thing. It's not like DeAndre Hopkins, I'm not getting mad at being the only guy that got cheating. Essentially, he's just the only one that got caught. It's one of those situations. But also, he kind of screws over his team. And he might even be screwing over his own value because I think Dan Orlovsky, there is a lot of takes that are questionable from him. But he does bring up some interesting topics, and this is one I want to hone in on when it comes to DeAndre Hopkins, is a possible trade to the Green Bay Packers, because he made the point in a very justifiable point saying that Hollywood Brown got traded to the Cardinals because the Ravens weren't going to pay him. So now the Cardinals apparently are going to. Kyler Murray's going to get paid. There's a couple other guys on that defense that might be getting paid soon. Are you going to pay? Are you going to afford those guys? Are you going to be able to afford Kyler Murray? Are you going to be able to afford Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins? I don't know. And also, the other great point is that the Packers are going to make the playoffs essentially no matter what. And the NFC is not that great, especially when you have by far the best. Well, I guess with Tom Brady coming back, you can't say by far the best quarterback, but I would say they have the most talented quarterback in that conference. They're going to make the playoffs. But DeAndre Hopkins does provide a big jump at the next level when it comes to playoff performance. And there's been so much, all the talk around Green Bay is getting them a wide receiver. So is there actually, a little bit of fire to the smoke?
I think the first thing I'll say is, such a crazy development in the story that DeAndre Hopkins has no idea how this positive PED test came in. And he talks about how he takes a holistic approach to his body, how he's so mindful, but something clearly fell through the cracks here. So, great defense by him. One that's really lasted the test of time. Yeah, almost believable. Almost like it's the first time we've heard that one before. But, moving on to what this actually means for the Cardinals is it's not great, Bob. It's not a good situation there anymore. We saw the Cardinals team that was 7-0 coming out of week 7, and they were scorching hot coming into the November, December timeframe, and they fell off an absolute cliff. And a lot of that was because of DeAndre Hopkins not being in the mix. A lot of it was because their team overall is just kind of a softer team that is great in the summer and fall months, but not great in the winter months when it starts getting a little cold out there. But, I think you can look at the fact that they brought in Marquise Brown. They're going to pay him some money. DeAndre Hopkins next year, if he were to play week 1, he would be 30 already when he started week 1. So is that a guy that you can commit serious money to in his age 32, 33, 34-year-old season? I think in their eyes, keeping Kyler Murray happy, getting Marquise Brown in, offloading Christian Kirk, and now you have this issue with DeAndre Hopkins. Does it make sense to trade him for the Cardinals? No. Is it a great time to trade him? No. Does he end up getting traded? Very, very possible. This is a team that we have seen make moves in the trade market. They brought in Zach Ertz last year. They obviously just traded for Marquise Brown, so they're not immune to making big moves in the trade market. So I think this makes a ton of sense for the Packers. I think DeAndre Hopkins is one of those receivers where if you put him with an Aaron Rodgers, where back shoulder throws and a lot of these precision timing routes that's DeAndre Hopkins' bread and butter. And seeing him, I think he's one of the only receivers other than Davante Adams where you can go look and say, as a pure wide receiver, quarterback independent, offense independent, he is one of the best. I would say him and Davante Adams are the 2 best wide receivers, pure wide receivers in the NFL. And if you put DeAndre Hopkins with Aaron Rodgers, I don't think they're going to miss a beat with that offense if you just replacing him with Davante Adams. It makes so much sense for them, but that's why it probably won't happen.
Yeah, it's weird because it seems like this isn't a trade that would happen, but there's a lot of things that would work out well with this trade. There's also, the handful of things that won't, but it's really not that bad of an idea, especially not as bad as an idea that some of the Twitter replies are getting in terms of Dan's mentions. So there could be legs here. The problem is though, every single time something has made sense for the Packers to do, whether it was last year they don't do it. They don't ever do it. DeAndre Hopkins can be the piece that could win this Packers team a Super Bowl.
And it's crazy, but it's crazy to say that when you had Davante Adams on their team. But that's the thing is, I think DeAndre Hopkins is that level of receiver where if you put him with Aaron Rodgers, we have never seen. I mean, Aaron Rodgers to Davante Adams is the closest thing I think we'll ever see to Joe Montana, Jerry Rice. And I think if you put Aaron Rodgers and DeAndre Hopkins, regardless of obviously they would have loved to have 5 years of chemistry, but just that pure talent combo alone is up there with some of the best duos ever.
Dude, that would be ridiculous. What you guys think, though? Is there fire to this proverbial smoke coming out of Arizona, coming out of Dan Orlovsky's mouth? That as well. Luckily for him, he gives us good content. He's wrong on a lot of stuff, but also some of the stuff he does kind of hit the nail on the head. So you got to take the good with the bad. That's what you do with most NFL pundits. But
the content machine,
dude. There's nothing like that. And he definitely gives us a couple of talking points to go off from. So I will never complain. Thank you, Dan. But ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it for us with our NFL draft breakdown. It was a great draft period. Had a lot of fun with it. And now we just get to go through the worst part about the offseason, and that's just waiting for anything to happen. So, Alex, thank you as always. And your thoughts on the 2022 NFL draft in one word or phrase?
Maybe there'll be quarterbacks next year. Maybe there will be, guys. We'll see you next week.